The Stubborn Turnip. Once upon a time, far, far away in a little village in Eastern Europe, lived an old woman, Babushka, and an old man, Darushka. Everyone in the village called them Grandma and Grandpa. They had a big garden in which they grew all kinds of vegetables. They grew potatoes and parsley and peppers and pumpkins and beans and carrots and lettuce and tomatoes. One lovely morning in early spring, Grandpa woke up, stretched, and looked in his garden. "We have no turnips. That's what's missing. We need some turnips for the fall holiday soup." So Grandpa went to his garden and planted a turnip seed. Grandma was watching, and she liked the idea of turnip soup, too, so she made sure to water the turnip seed every day. And they took such care of that seed. Grandpa weeded it, and Grandma watered it, so that turnip grew, and grew, and grew, and grew, and grew, and grew, and grew. Soon, it was almost as big as Grandma. One morning, they both went out to look at it, and Grandpa said, "My turnip is getting enormous. We'd better pull it out." And Grandma said, "Your turnip? What do you mean, your turnip? That's my turnip. Didn't I water it every day?" "Well, yes, you watered it, but I planted it. It's my turnip. Surely you see that." But Grandma went off in a huff, and they got into a terrible argument. "I watered it. I planted it." They argued and argued and argued. And while they argued, the turnip grew and grew and grew. And one morning they couldn't see out of the window because the turnip leaves were covering it. So Grandma went out and took a hold of the top of the turnip and tried to pull it up. But it wouldn't come. And she puffed and she pulled and she pulled and she puffed. But that stubborn turnip would not move. The next day, Grandpa came out and saw a rabbit circling the turnip, its ears wiggling in delight. "Oh," thought Grandpa, "if we don't pull up this turnip, it's going to be dinner for a lot of rabbits." So he took a hold of the top of the turnip, and he tugged and he pulled and he pulled and he tugged, but that stubborn turnip would not budge. So he gave up, and he called to Grandma, "Grandma, this arguing is getting us nowhere. Would you please help to pull our turnip?" And Grandma said, "Sure." So Grandpa put both hands around the top of the turnip, and Grandma put her arms around Grandpa, and together they pulled and pulled and pulled. But that stubborn turnip wouldn't move. "We need more help," said Grandma. "Let's call our grandson Alex to help us." "Alex! Alex!" And Alex came running, and he put his arms around Grandma, and Grandma put her arms around Grandpa, and together they pulled and they pulled and they pulled. But that stubborn turnip would not move. "We need more help. Let's call our granddaughter Lisa." "Lisa! Lisa!" And Lisa came running, and she put her arms around Alex, and Alex put his arms around Grandma, and Grandma put her arms around Grandpa, and together they puffed and they pulled and they pulled and they puffed. But that stubborn turnip would not move. Just then, the cat came by. "Here's Tasha, the cat. Tasha, can you help?" And Tasha put her paws around Lisa, and Lisa had her arms around Alex, and Alex had his arms around Grandma, and Grandma had her arms around Grandpa, and together they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled. But that stubborn turnip would not move. Just then, a tiny little field mouse came running by, and he saw Tasha's tail waving at the end of the line, and he couldn't resist. And he went up and he bit Tasha's tail. And just at that moment, with all of them pulling, the turnip came out of the ground, and they all fell over on top of each other. And Tasha raced off to catch that mouse, and the mouse ran away into a haystack, thinking he was the one who had pulled up the turnip. And it took all of them, Grandpa, Grandma, Alex, and Lisa, to drag that enormous turnip into the house. And it was the biggest, the best turnip that anyone had ever seen. And Grandma made turnip soup, and mashed turnips and turnip stew and turnip pie and turnip ice cream. And they all had a wonderful holiday.